our mutual friend Marie, she is an IFBB Pro fitness bikini athlete, but she also referred me to you. But you yourself, you've got a bit of a fitness background. Can you take me back to your early years? Where did it all start for you?
Wow. As in the very, very beginning, or
Yeah, tell me about what your childhood was like growing up. Were you very athletic? Were you into sport?
yes. So I started doing multiple sports from a very young age. My mom just put me in camps and made me find my way. I also went to a very practical school at first. So from very young age, I went to a Montessori school, if anyone ever heard of it. It's a practical based learning.
Yep.
So I think that sort of setting set me up to carry on being active.
Yes.
And then I
Yep.
went from there and branched out into camps when I got a little bit older. And then from there, I pretty much told my mom that I would like to do gymnastics. I think I stared at the TV and was like, I want to do that.
Wow, fantastic. And also I was reading as well, you have a background in cheerleading, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. I was on a few cheerleading squads in this country, which will be very surprising to some. It's come up in a massive way now over here, but it's still, I guess, one of those niche ones where if you're not in that world, you may not know about it.
Yeah. And with your bodybuilding as well. So how did you transition into fitness and bodybuilding? When did you start lifting weights?
The first time I ever lifted a weight, I was 30 years old.
Oh wow, so you started quite late.
Started really late. Yeah. In the grand scheme of
Really?
things. Yeah.
Yeah. So what got you into weight training?
After doing things like gymnastics, I even did a little bit of acrobatics, as well as take up ballet at the age of 25. As well as doing obviously the cheerleading, as we discussed. I thought the things that I was doing were quite strenuous and have a young longevity is the word. So I wanted something that will keep me going for a very long time. Um, and I wasn't sure what that may entail, but I did know that maybe I should join a gym. So I actually sat on it for a little while and was like, I don't know. Because at that time, weights didn't really appeal to me. It looked kind of boring. For me, to be very honest, it looked very boring. But
Yeah.
I had explored the bodybuilding world, as in I saw what bodybuilders do. I was fascinated by it. I was like, wow, how did they even do that at that point? But I kind of parked it to the side, so I was just watching it, but I wasn't thinking I should do it. Not in the slightest. It wasn't until I saw a friend and I was like, oh, I need something to do. And I saw that she was really into the gym and I was like, okay. And she was like, you should try it. But before then, so it's funny how life works itself out. I was modeling and
Wow.
yeah. But my modeling wasn't focused on my sporting background. So I did not shoot anything towards fitness, gymnastics, ballet, anything like that, really. It was more towards beauty. I did hair and beauty sort of work, as well as beauty, because it's two individual categories, editorial. So I'm wearing, clothes and lots of clothes and big dresses and um, yeah, so my body was not the focus, really. It was more about like the shapes I can create as well as the movement in that respect.
Yes.
So it wasn't until I was on a shoot and it was a break and a girl, another model, was just messing around doing cartwheels and all of that. And she was like, oh, can you cartwheel and all that? I said, yeah, I can cartwheel. So I did it. And then the photographer was like, hold on a sec. That was a very nice cartwheel. I went, oh, thank you. And then he looked at me and was like, so you got any experience in that? I said, yeah, a lot of experience. And then he was like, well, that's a whole another genre of modeling you can add to your portfolio. And I went, oh, I didn't think I can combine the two, being so naive at the time.
Yep.
So that photographer opened up my world. And then he was like, well, you can seek to get a portfolio in that genre. So I said, okay. And I found a photographer. And I went to that photographer to add some, content to my portfolio. And that photographer happened to be talking about bodybuilding because the last person that left was a bodybuilder. And I was like, oh, okay. And they were telling me about their background, how they did gymnastics and how, they went on to do bodybuilding. And I was like, this is fascinating. And he was like, not that if you want to do that or not, but this is what that person did before. Cause I was like interested because they had a really good body and everything. And it just resonated with me. And then I went, okay, so how do you go about this then? If you don't have a clue about it, you're not sure if you're into it, you know, what would you suggest? And they said, oh, maybe you try getting a coach, personal trainer, something, to see if you actually like it. So again, just resonated. And then after that, I decided, okay, maybe I should just join the gym first. So I joined the gym. The gym I joined, if you're in the UK, you'll know of it. And in London was called Gymbox. And Gymbox had all these classes that was acrobatics based, gymnastic based. So I thought, oh, forget the weights. I want to go to these classes. So I actually went to the classes for 4 months. Didn't lift a weight.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh,
Didn't lift a single weight. And then my friend saw that I was getting into it and she was like, I should come down to your gym. And I said, yeah, I have guest passes. And, so she came down and she was like, okay, what should we do? Should we do some legs, upper body? What do you want to do? And I was like, I just been going classes. She's like, okay, let's start with legs. So we did a bit of extensions, which was crazy hard at that time. I was like, ugh. And then after that, she was like, let's go on the leg press. And now I remember looking at it, but I was like, that looks interesting. So she was like, right, your turn. She goes, let's maybe start without weights because you haven't done it yet. And I went, yeah. Anyways, I couldn't even lift the thing up. And I was like, this is highly frustrating. And then she goes on there and was just up and down, up and down, up and down. I was like, how did you do that? She's like, you just have to practice, just get into it, see how you feel. And I couldn't lift the thing up. I was shaking, all sorts. I was like, "Ah." And I think that frustration got to me because I love a challenge. So something clicked in
yeah.
my head and I was like, right, you know, after that session, it was terrible. My DOMs were out of this world. Um, but I was used to that from other sports. So I was like, okay, let's just recover. So she went back to her gym. I was there still with my membership. Well, you know what? Let me just try and tackle this. Like at least lift the thing up without shaking. And it went from there. So I actually got into it. And then I managed to get a coach to help me. It was online based. So they made me a program. And you know what? It helped me to discover myself because I had to follow this program, which I hadn't got a clue what was on it, even though I had demonstrations and all that. So I just worked my way through the program in frustration for a while.
Yeah.
And then I actually
Did the
started to love
gym
it
did the gym humble you?
very. But every sport that I've done has humbled me because I've had to work at it. I had to be patient. I had to, for example, gymnastics, it can take years to get a skill in gymnastics and you have to be very accurate. You can't just get a skill. It has to be perfect. I know no one's perfect, but in a gymnastic world, that's what you're going for is a perfect score and perfect execution at every skill. And that combined equals, you doing well. So I think that mindset subconsciously kicked in. And then after speaking to some in the industry, they were like, okay, the best advice I can give you, because I'd be like, what's your top tips? And they'll be like, be consistent, good form, add them together and then see how you feel. It's always about see how you feel. I was like, what do you mean? Like muscle, see how you feel with the muscle. I was like, okay, I'll give that a go. And then after that, I started to explore it myself. So I'm a researcher. I'm actually a biomedical scientist by trade. So
Oh,
again,
wow.
that kicked in.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so already into science, I already studied the anatomy and physiology of the body to a very high standard. So
Mm.
I think in my mind, as I was, mulling my way through all of this, I, things just started to come together. And as I started to research, I started to look up bodybuilding even more, and watching it avidly as well, like really getting into it. And then, finding my way around the gym. Before you know it, I got told, oh, maybe you should try the stage. Um, you know, I think you have potential to do it in bikini class. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yep.
I was very small and slender. When I started out, to put things in perspective, I was 43 kg, but I think that's about 90 pounds.
Yeah, yeah, 43. So we use kilos over here in Australia as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Yep.
kg, 90 pounds. I know some around the world use pounds. And, um,
Yep.
and then at the top of let's say my top weight, again, to put it in perspective, I reached 81 kg, which is that 170,
Wow.
160, 70 pounds? Yes. So that was a difference. And when I reached that was about 5 years into lifting weights. By then I had
That's
gone through the whole
incredible.
process. Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. Do you find that weight training is a little bit like a language? You're learning something that requires, diligence and persistence. It's obviously a discipline thing as well, but it's a skill. It's something that you have to learn. And did you find it quite challenging initially to start with, because you have to correct your form, the sets, the amount of reps that you're doing, the rests, these are all things that you learn. Was it quite initially quite difficult for you to pick up?
Once I understood the concept, it's actually very similar to the sports that I've done, if you think about
Yeah,
it.
so it transferred
Um,
over.
it transferred over. So I was able to get into it quite quickly, especially when it comes to form, rest, being consistent, staying in a routine, and then most importantly, repetitiveness.
Yep.
I was used to that. All the sports I'm in is highly repetitive, very technical, and you have to be patient and consistent and be in a routine and train, longer than I had to do in bodybuilding. Um, Gymnastics, I think at one point I was training around 36 hours per week. Um,
Wow.
and doing things on my own at home, and you just couldn't stop me. There was no such thing as the words that I hear now, like deload or um overtraining, or I didn't even have things called like pre-workouts and workout supplements that helped. It was just water and the air I breathed, which is what my coach said. So
Yeah.
that I came
And
from that background into this. So I was like, oh, I can do an hour and a half training, 1 hour training. That's nothing to me.
And did you have any sort of skepticism? Were you sort of hesitant initially of lifting weights because, you'd look big and bulky? And one of the myths that has been debunked numerous times is women are very hesitant about lifting weights because they're worried they're going to look like a man. Was that something that, would play on your mind a little bit initially?
No. However, when I was a gymnast, though, I knew I couldn't get too bulky because of the weight being carried through the air from an aerodynamic perspective.
Mm.
So, yes, but then in bodybuilding, because I knew that you needed to put on size, my mind already switched. Um, I think the key word, and I say this a lot to my clients because I coach now, is being adaptable. And I think that's what got me far. I treated it as a brand new, sort of thing I have to learn. So I was like, forget my background. I need to learn this first, I came into it with very open eyes. I spoke to others in the industry. I took it all in. And then again, you have to find your own way and, make it your own journey. So when I came into this with no pressure because I already been in sports that were very pressurizing. Even though I was never pushed to do these things. I always wanted to do it, but they were still pressure. So I said, when I'm doing this, there's not going to be no pressure. You know, I'm just going to enjoy the process and have fun. And that's what I've carried throughout this entire journey. I have no pressure when I go on stage. I don't say to myself, I must come first. I must come in the top. No, 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 no. Obviously we have goals, and I know that I could come first and I could do this, and what I mean, that would be great. But at the end of the day, it's my journey and I just want to seek improvement each time. And that's how I got taught from my other sports. If you keep
Yes.
improving and you stick to the rules and criteria, I'm very good at sticking to the rules because gymnastics, you have to. If you don't point your toe, that could be between first and third you know. So again, subconsciously, I brought all of that into this. So once I knew what the goal and objective was, I ran with it. And also, I'm a 0 to 100 person. So once I love something, I'm not half in. I'm 100. So,
Yep.
and that's it. And then I go.
So, what would you say would be the three things that weight training and bodybuilding has taught you?
It taught me that it's a never-ending journey. I can't expect to get a skill. For example, in gymnastics, you can get a backflip. In ballet, you can get a plie. Um, in cheerleading, you can learn to stunt and toss someone in the air and catch them in a basket. Um, it doesn't work like that in bodybuilding. You're playing against, your own body's composition. Um, whether you can build that way in the first place. And then how do you go about building it? There's so many various different ways, and your body may not take to that approach. So you've got to find the approach that works for you. You've also got to figure out where does your body lie when you start competing. And you also got to figure out what on earth is your goal and why are you doing this? It's not as black and white as the other sports that I've been in. So there's so many, I feel, can be gray areas. It depends on how you make the journey. But what I do love is that you are forever learning. So you can't once think that you've cracked this because you haven't.
Yep.
So that is the biggest lesson I've learned. And I've learned to be even more patient.
Yes. Yeah. And walk me through, Shelley. So you initially competed in bikini, and then I was reading as well. You placed top 5 at the Mr. Olympia, and also the top 3 at the Arnold Classic. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't compete in the bikini category. I never did in terms of NPC IFBB. I was
Yep.
initially told that I will be good enough to go in bikini because I think of my size. Now that was a whole different story. Once I actually started lifting, I didn't realize I can build the way I can build. Others have different theories on how I built. Maybe it's because I came in with, looking at it from a good form perspective and genetics, and because I came in so disciplined, and there's so many different factors that I've heard that this is why I got to where I am. But I think what stays true is I was very consistent, with it. I gave it my absolute all from the beginning, and my body decided it wants to build muscle. Now, it wasn't as easy as that for me because my upper body actually builds about 5 times faster than my legs, believe it or not, even though I got told I've got really good legs now. And I wanted to make it that way. I didn't want to be, top heavy. At one point, I was called traps because my traps were like a mountain, and everything else needed to catch up somehow. Um, I I wanted to find something that worked for my body, and it just so happened that my body then went into the figure category. By the time I, started building muscle, and I thought, okay, my body is going that way, so I'll go that way. Now, if my body stayed in a bikini, I would have gone that way. But it went towards the figure category. However, I was told I do need to build up my legs. So I actually didn't train my upper body for a year just to balance out my legs.
Really? Wow.
I trained my legs 4 to 5 times a week just to balance myself out
Is that right? That's incredible. Yeah. And
quietly.
what was the outcome? What was the outcome after that? A whole year of just, strategically training legs. What was the physique looking like?
Well, there's a lot of things that go in your head when you do that. So you think, I'm going to lose so much size on the top. Um, and, I just thought, let me trust the process, because if this is the case, I can catch it up easily, right? And I had nothing to lose.
Yep.
So it came out with a symmetrical body in the end,
Fantastic.
which is
That's good.
what they want for the figure category, right? So by the time I added back in my upper body, it didn't take long for it to all just proportionally be distributed. And then after that, I went on to what they call, quote unquote, a normal program. But I still maintained training my legs 3 times a week. Then I introduced upper once a week and then twice a week. Yeah.
Yeah. And walk me through, what's the difference between figure, fitness, and bikini? So obviously it's the size difference. So how does the
Yes.
posing differentiate between the three?
Um, I think they're all completely different in a way, um, because of the way the rules and the criteria is. However, when it comes to fitness and figure, the shape is the same. So I'll start with fitness because that's what I'm in. Fitness is 30% physique and 70% our fitness routine. Whereas figure is 100% physique. In fact, every other category is 100% physique based. So we have to have the same body as figure, but we have to add in our routine, which is 70%. So it's very weighted. So I could have, a great figure body, but if I don't do well in the routine, I'm not going to do well overall. So, there's a balance, and strategically, in my category, you can weigh that up, and think, okay, maybe I'm not as strong in the body, but I'm really strong in the routine, and make up your points that way, um, in terms of like your score. So I had to find out what worked for me in the fitness category in that respect. And then bikini has its own different set of rules, but it's not the same muscle maturity. I would say actually there is muscle maturity, but it sits on the body in a different way. And we both have to reach different types of percentages in terms of our fat percentages. So you don't have to go as low in the bikini as you may do in figure, fitness, women's physique, and so on. And then we have to have, for example, a symmetrical, balanced body in terms of our musculature, whereas bikini is more to do with the shape. Now, they do have to be developed in certain areas, but their whole composition is different.
Yes. And what was that feeling of being placed top 5 in the Mr. Olympia? Has that got to be one of your most memorable moments so far?
Wow, yes, it has to be. In fact, I've embraced every single moment because every single moment has been amazing, no matter where I've placed. But yeah, that it was a shocker. I mean, I was not expecting that at all. First Olympia, first year. I was only amateur for 4 weeks.
Wow.
It's just, and it was the biggest in terms of the amount of athletes in the category who qualified for fitness because it was on the back of COVID.
Oh,
So
wow. How many competitors were there in your division?
um, I think they were like 19 total.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. And was this last year?
No, my first ever Olympia was 222.
Right. Yep.
I'm gonna go for my third this year.
Amazing.
I did my
Yeah.
second last year. I took a year gap in terms of Olympias because my journey was so quick. I was getting a bit burnt out, and I went back to back to back to back. So I was on prep because I just wanted to take every opportunity, and I was just rolling with it. And then I thought, I was like, kind of need a break.
Yes.
And everyone was like, I think you should. Like, you're very new to this still. Chill out. And I think I
Yeah.
definitely needed to. I needed my body to recover. I worked out it's better, in the long run to make a plan, pick your shows wisely, and then make sure you have enough time to recover as well, because you will crash and burn and you won't have any longevity in this. So I learned that.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned you were competing back to back, Shelley. I was talking to Syed Shavershevich. Chespra is internet name. So very well known established bodybuilder over here in Australia. And he also did back to back bodybuilding
Yes.
comps. Yeah, but that's a lot on your plate. Yeah. Would you recommend people, have a break between each comp that they do?
I would say it depends on when the comps are. So let's say they're 5, 6 weeks apart. You can do a run, you know,
Yep.
but it's when you do a run for 2 years. No.
Yes.
Don't. And also be strategic about it. You want to peak at certain shows because you can't necessarily peak at every one.
Yes.
So you got to think to
Yeah.
yourself, what is your goal here? Whether your goal is to do really well in Olympia or the Arnold, or to do really well at a particular pro show, you need to have, something going on, a strategy.
Yep.
Yes, and then you need to build in your recovery time as well. Now, if you've done it already and you think, okay, 4 shows is far too much, maybe I should focus on two. um, but yes, definitely having a focus and trying not to do as many with such a big gap is the key here.
Yeah.
Because if you have a certain gap, like for example, an 8-week gap, you're going to have to stay on prep. So you need to make sure your mind is in that and your body.
Yes. And walk me through the nutrition and the timing of the meals, especially leading up to peak week. So how do you structure your meals? Is it like a 6-month cycle leading up to the competition? Like how do you sort of, work that in?
Well, I say to everyone, I'm just on a prep in regardless. I don't really say I'm on a prep, I'm on a bulk, I'm on this, I'm on that. Um, I compete all year round. So I just take everything as a phase. So like I'm, training now to improve, and then I will get ready for a show whenever that date is. So I'll be like, okay, I'm competing, September, fine. My mind's already set from before that I know I'm competing in September. So I don't need to say to myself that now it's time to work. No, I'm working all year round. So I just want to the aim is to just smoothly go into a show. Um, and, once that goal is set, my team knows that. So calories will just gradually come down or go up or vice versa, but nothing really changes in terms of like how I'm thinking.
Yes. Yeah. And what's your current meal plan? Is it six small meals throughout the day spread out every couple of hours? Like run me
So
through what you eat.
my meal plan changes depending on my check-ins. So I check in, with my coaches, and it will either stay the same or change, depending on how I look and what my goal is. So I can't say I'm always on this amount because I'm not. So
Yeah.
it's dependable on, what the goal is and what I'm supposed to look like. At the moment I'm on a split, so I have high days and low days. And that seems to work good for my body because I get to, you know, get that initial, fat off to show the muscles that I've built up. And then I get to refuel and then we go again. Um, which works really well, for my body. Now, everyone's plans can be different. So my biggest advice is, you need to get to know your body. Your coach needs to get to know your body and how it works. Again, it also depends on your category. So fitness, I do need some energy to get through that routine and practice it, as well as diet down and look like a figure competitor. That's just it. So I need to balance the two.
Yeah. And do you carb load? So 2 to 3 days, or 2 to 3 days out, will you carb load?
No, I don't really carb load. My team's approach is if I look good on a Tuesday, for example, I'm competing a Friday. Why am I changing?
Yep. Yep.
Because a lot of people go wrong then in their peak weeks. My peak week will only change if something happens because you don't know how your body's going to react sometimes. Other than that, I just cruise in to shows.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But what would you say are some of the top tips that you would recommend for someone that is looking to build muscle to step up on stage?
I would say definitely sleep, consistency, being adaptable. So, for example, what I mean by that is if you hit a PB, so don't get fixated on PBs either. If you hit a PB on a Monday last week and you don't hit the same thing on a Monday the next week, don't let it get to your head. The main thing is that you reach muscular failure for that session if you're wanting to build, um, or that you are trying to build up strength, for example. You have to take into consideration the order of things in which you've done it, your recovery. So making sure your recovery is good. So that, that Monday in particular, the recovery may not be as good. You may have slept late, you know. So all you can do for that particular day is try your best and reach your failure for your muscles, not just failure and you faint. That
Yeah.
makes hopefully that makes sense.
Yes.
Because that's what you inevitably need in order to, either keep muscle tissue or, to grow your muscle tissue. And that's what we're trying to do here. Now how we do it depends on your plan.
Yes.
So have a
And
good plan of action.
should you train to failure every workout
I
if the
say
goal is
yeah,
muscle
but it's
mass?
muscular failure. Yes. So, again, when I say that, it's all relative. So, for example, I don't need to build anymore. So my weight is set at moderate. So I will reach failure at moderate because I'm not looking to build, I'm looking just to maintain. That's what I mean by having a plan of action to your goal. It might say light on it for me, whereas before it would say heavy because I'm trying to build as much mass as possible.
Yep.
And there's other body parts I don't actually train as well now. Like I do not train my biceps and triceps because that will unbalance me. So again, my top tips will be great plan of action, know what your goal is. And then from there, make sure your recovery is good. You get your sleep because that aids in recovery. Sleep also is good for nutrition wise. Nutrition is pretty much the main component of this. And then your training aids that. You literally are, I believe, what you eat. So if you can get those things on point, your recovery, your nutrition, in, and then have a plan of action with your weights, you should, be going towards your goal or reach it.
Yep. And a lot of people do struggle with sleep, Shelley. And one of the most important things that needs to happen to build muscle is sleep hygiene.
Yes.
Some people have anxiety, insomnia. It can be really difficult to kind of wind down. Do you recommend any supplements for sleep? And I mean, magnesium is a big one.
Mhm.
But do you supplement with magnesium? And if so, what magnesium supplements should people be taking?
More often than not, the reason why sleep can, be affected is because of hormonal imbalance.
Mm.
Um, and obviously that creates certain emotions in your mind. I know this because I studied the science before. So I would say get some blood work, get yourself checked, see where you're at in terms of your levels. You could have thyroid problems as well, heart, who knows, but make sure you have that check to make sure that those underlying issues is dealt with first. And I do believe that will combat a lot of the issues around sleep and emotions and how a person feels. So I think hormone balance or checking out your own body to make sure it's working or functioning well, um, that should be very important, and that will inevitably make everything run smoothly. So I do get my myself checked out, blood work, and then from based on those results, I then supplement. I don't just supplement for the sake of supplementing because that could also throw you off.
Yes. Yep. So you would recommend people to get blood work done to see if there's any nutritional deficiencies?
Yes, either
Um,
blood work or actually check out your body. There's various different scans, and I don't know how they do it in every country, but you can go for like, was it a full MOT, like a car
Yep.
checkup? Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be a PT, Shelley, and I learnt about biosignature, and biosignature was a 12-point body fat site test that correlates to a specific hormone. So where you store fat in your body is an indication of your hormonal profile. And you can strategically influence body composition by lifestyle choices, the food that you eat, and sleep. And this was invented by Charles Poliquin, rest in peace to him. And one of the interesting things as well is the misconception of obviously doing 100 and so crunches to get rid of the body fat off your stomach. That's true. You could do a million crunches and still have a gut, but you could
Yes.
also influence the gut, especially with the hormones and how it works as far as sleep hygiene, cortisol, reducing your stress.
Yeah.
But magnesium's an interesting one because
Magnesium can work wonders if you can get it right for your body.
yeah. Yep. And do you yourself supplement with magnesium? I mean, there's so many different blends and people get so confused.
What I
Yep.
do is I try to make sure that my vitamins and minerals are in the normal range.
Yep.
So for example, I'll do like my check every 3 to 4 months and see. So if that is low, I will get it higher, and then check again.
Yep. Yep. And what about zinc? So zinc and vitamin D,
Sorry,
because
I'm
you live in
allergic to
the
dust.
you're okay.
No, so I'm allergic to dust. That's another thing. I got diagnosed with that. Oh my gosh, maybe about 8 years ago.
Really
Yeah,
interesting. You're allergic to dust.
yeah. So if something comes falling, I'll have an attack. So sorry.
Really?
Yeah.
No, no. Yeah. And what about
It's
vitamin
okay.
D? So vitamin D is a big one, because that's linked with optimal health and hormone function, and also regulation with your sleep as well. In the UK, a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. But do you supplement with vitamin D?
Yes. So I found out I was deficient in vitamin D. So I do get, well, at the moment I'm doing venous or intravenous IV of some of my vitamins and minerals. And that seems to be going really well. In fact, that really boosts my levels straight back up. So based off my check, I was deficient and I boosted it. Sorry. This might be a lot. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
It don't happen often, but because it's become hot over here. So
Yes.
either some suffer from hay fever, my daughter suffers from hay fever. I am dust. So let's say you see the road works, and there's a lot going on around my area at the moment. So if they're digging up the road, those particles, I'm going off on one, she's going off on one because of pollen.
Yeah, a lot of
Pollen I seem
dust.
to be okay with, which is very interesting, unless it's
Yeah,
big clumps of it and it gets
yeah,
stuck in me. Other than that, me is mainly dust and different chemicals. So I've had, crazy incidents where I've had to move away from people and they're like, oh, gosh, don't want to be next to me. It's because I'm allergic to
yeah,
a chemical in their body soap or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
We had a kid in our school. So this was about 20 years or so ago, probably longer. He was allergic to peanuts, and all it took was someone to actually breathe, and he actually had an anaphylactic attack. And some people are severely allergic to peanuts, but I'm thinking, when did the whole peanut thing start? Because more and more
That's so
people are
fascinating.
starting to, get allergies from all sorts of things.
That is fascinating. I think that's something I would like to research, actually. I'd never
Yeah,
thought about it that way. But it's the same as
yeah,
pollen and hay fever. Hay fever is so common now. It's wild. And dust allergies.
yeah,
When I first got diagnosed, it wasn't as common. And now I'll be coughing a certain way or something. And I'll be like, oh gosh, my dust. And they're like, yeah, me too. And then sometimes we'll have a coughing fit together, but I don't know about that.
yeah,
But it's like I'm hearing it more and more and more. And it's not just that, the peanut allergy as well, and other things, quite a few people walking around with something or another they're allergic to.
yeah,
Um, we could say a lot of theories here. That's going to be a whole nother podcast. I have so many theories for everything.
yeah. Shelley, you said your mission is to guide others. How do you put that into action?
I've been coaching from the age of 14 in gymnastics, number one. And then from that, just helping others. Like, I don't necessarily have to be coaching. So if someone comes up to me and wants to learn something, I'm all ears, as long as they're the type that are willing to try, whatever that may be. Um, but other than that, I also coach in bodybuilding as well. So that's my way of helping others. And this was through other people saying to me, oh, I would love to have your help. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then valuing that help. And I find it very rewarding, actually, when someone says to me, oh, that really helped them, or, that set them up to do this. It might not necessarily be in bodybuilding. For example, when I do coach my lifestyle clients, they've come to me and said, not only do I feel confident in my body now, it's made me get a promotion at work, because that's how it works in the brain. When you're feeding your brain with, those good endorphins, or the endorphins are being made, it's not just going to get you a good body or get you to your competition goal. It's going to make you feel confident in your job as well, and how you feel. And those hormones can be very powerful. So I want, as many people as I can get to to feel this way, because I feel that
Yep.
way.
Yeah, it's interesting, Shelley. Exercise has been proven time and time again as a natural antidepressant. And like a lot of people will sort of, resort to pharmaceutical drugs, and that kind of just only numbs it. But it's pretty remarkable what exercise can actually do. And I find myself, you could have the worst day, you just go and exercise, and then you just feel so much better, don't you? It's just those endorphins, that rush of endorphins that you actually gain after you finish your workout.
Yeah. Yep, it's definitely the endorphins. So, a theory may be, if I train in the morning and go to work, those endorphins will be released and be happy endorphins, and that will make you happier in your work.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think there's definitely studies on that has proven that, even if you don't like your job per se, because there's a few people that walking around that don't like their job, it does make them more productive, in a better mindset as well. So, um, yes, I do believe, regardless of what your goal is, having some sort of activity in there that you enjoy will certainly set you up for life.
Yes. And looking ahead, Shelley, so the Olympia, so you're competing this year in the Olympia, and is this in September? Is that usually when the Olympia is on?
It's in October.
October. Yep. And you'll be competing in fitness?
Yes, I need to qualify, so I will be doing a show beforehand. Yeah.
Yep. And what's this show that you do before the Olympia?
So you have to do a pro show and win it to qualify. So I will seek to go and do a pro show, and the aim is to win it and go to my third Olympia.
Amazing. Yeah. Now, very exciting, Shelley. And where can people find you, Shelley? So, for those people that want to book in and do some one-on-ones with you, or even online coaching, where can people reach out to you?
So they can reach out to me on my Instagram, which is Shelly Fit underscore IFBB Pro. So it's SHELLYFIT underscore IFBB Pro, PRO. They can reach out to me there. Also on that page, I do have like my website, so they could fill out an inquiry form as well if they wish, or send me a DM. Um, Whichever way they feel right for them, that they can do that. And yeah, and you can also ask me questions. So um, obviously, I do a lot in the day, but I do try and get back to everyone with a productive question or answer to what they're asking.
Amazing. Shelley, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting down and chatting with you.
You are very, very welcome, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.